let's add a little juice to the game. First, let's learn about particles. In Godot, you can create particles using the particle 2D node. So we'll click on our world here, click add node, and we'll search particle and choose particle 2D. And you can obviously use particles for a lot of different things. One of the things I like about the particle system in Godot, we'll drag our particle over here, is that you can see exactly what the particle is going to do in the editor. So you can see we've got our properties over here. We've got emitting. This is whether or not it's creating particles. And this is true, but we're not creating any particles, and I'll show you why. We've got an amount, and we've got some other things like lifetime, how long the particles last, randomness, explosiveness. There's a lot of stuff here to mess around with, and I do encourage you to mess around with a lot of this. But in order to actually start creating some particles, we have to have a process material. So here's our material. It's currently empty. Let's do a new particles material. And you can see once we've done that, we immediately start to see some particles. It's just a single pixel because we haven't applied a texture. But you could apply a texture if you wanted. We could grab our icon, drag it, drop it right here. Now we're creating particles that are a texture. But we're actually going to be just using pixels. So let's clear this texture. We'll click on this arrow, click clear, and come back to our pixels. We're going to be doing some stars, and we can do that with our particles. But first we need to move our particle over here to the right side of the room. We'll be generating the particles. Actually, we'll end up putting it in the center. So let's come to our transform and set our Y to 90, like that. So now it's at the edge, centered like that. And let me pull up my reference project here. So the first thing we want to change is the lifetime. We want these particles to last a lot longer. We're going to do 7 seconds, so they'll last quite a while. You can see it's creating them, and they're coming all the way down here. We'll want to come into inside of our material here. There's a lot of stuff we can change as well. So we're going to click on the particle material, and that opens up a lot of properties with the particle. We're also going to want to alter the box extents. Let's hide our process material. And that will be inside of the process material actually. There's going to be gravity. We'll want to set our gravity to 0. So the particles no longer fall. We're going to want to set their spread, or let's set their initial velocity. Well, their linear. Yeah, we'll set their initial velocity. Well, that might not actually matter. We might not need to. Let's set it to 100 and see what happens. Okay. Yeah, you can see it's creating particles now and firing them to the left. However, we've got an issue here, which is our particles are spreading at a 45-degree angle, and you can see that under our spread here. Set this to 0, so now they'll always go straight to the left. We want to randomize the velocity slightly, and the random properties are from 0 to 1, so 1 being maximum randomness, which means we could get the full speed or we could get a speed of 0. But we're going to do 0.5, which should mean that we can get a -50 or -100. At least that's my understanding of it. So let's set our emission shape now. So our emission shape is currently a point. We want it to be a box. And we need to set the box extents. We're going to do one on the X and one on the Z. don't need to mess with those. But we do want to change the Y because we're only creating from this point. We want to be creating from all of these points along the edge. Now our room is 180 pixels high, right? And we're right in the middle. So if we do our extent of 90 in the Y, that will add 90 above and 90 below, which gets us this exact distance since we're in the center of the room. Now we've got some pretty good stars going on, but we're still only creating 8, so we want to create 200. Quite a bit more. And there we go. We've got a nice star field using particles now. And you can see they do extend out past the room here, but that's okay. We actually have to have them extend. The slowest ones will be deleted somewhere around here, but the faster ones won't be deleted till clear over here. So, and it should be fine to have those particles outside there. Now we'll rename this stars, like that. Or we could call it star particles. That might be a better name. And run the game. And we'll see that these star particles are coming and they look pretty good. However, you saw that at the start of the game there are no star particles there. So how do we solve that problem? It starts creating them. Well, there's a pre-process thing here, which allows you to choose an amount of time that the particles are pre-processed, which means the game, before it actually starts running, it will try and predict where the particles would be in that amount of time, and it will place them there where they would be. So the lifetime of our particles is 7, so we want to do that same pre-process time because that will get us 1 particle lifetime. And if you turn pre-process on, you can see right when we run the game, we've already got our star filled. And we're looking good. Okay. Our particles currently do go over the tops of our enemies. Well, not our enemies, but our player, I think. It's hard to see unless you go right over the... Yeah, I think they do go over the top. But if we drag it up here, right there, whoops, we do want them to be in front of the background though. But we can put them behind everything else. And then we're properly layered. Looking good. Now let's implement some sound effects. We'll start with a laser sound effect. So come into our bullet. We're going to add a new node, and it is audio stream player node. And we're going to, we're going to drag in a sound. So we've got laser.wave. Let's drag this over and we can play it. You can see that's the sound it makes. We'll set it to autoplay, which means it should play right when the bullet is created. And then we can actually, I don't think it will play over and over again, but I don't remember for sure. So let's just test this to see. Yeah. So that's all we need. It's done. We're playing a sound effect. We don't even have to write code for it. I will be showing you how to play a sound in code, however, because you can do that as well. But let's come into our explosion effect, and we'll add another audio stream player. And for this one, we'll do the explode.wave. We'll make it autoplay as well. And run the game. Good. That's perfect. Okay, let's name these. Explode sound. And in bullet, laser sound. Little bit inconsistent with our names there, since this is bullet and this is laser. Should probably rename this. That's a good thing to learn too. If you want to change your names, it's not too hard. Come in here, we'll type laser. Okay. But that doesn't change the name of the scene. To change the name of the scene, you need to come down here in your scenes, find your bullet scene, right click, do rename, call it laser. And then we'll do the same for the sprite, rename, laser. There we go. But our player actually creates this bullet, so we're going to want to update that as well. If we come into our ship.gd, you can see this is called bullet. If we run the game, we're going to get issues now because we've renamed this, right? Can't preload resource at path bullet.tscn, which that's good that we get an error so that we know exactly what we need to fix. Laser. Then we have fire bullet. So we'll want to update this to fire laser. Update it here. And here. And here. There is a find replace as well. So if you're lazy, or if there's a lot of stuff to change, you can use that. And to do find replace within a single file, you do Control R. That will give you find replace within a single file. If you want to do a project-wide find replace, you do Control Shift F, and this will allow you to find and replace stuff in the entire project. Okay, so we've got our. There's another thing. This is something that I haven't fixed yet, but we really need to fix, which is we just want our ship to be basically on top of everything. And because currently when we create the bullets, or the lasers I should say, they are underneath. We actually want our score label to be on top of stuff too. They're being created underneath the ship. Well, actually, score label being on top would be down here. They're being created underneath the ship, which means they're being drawn on top of the ship. However, we can fix this by altering our z-index and turning off z-index as... No, I think it's fine to have z-index as relative because of the scene that we're in. But we want to set our z-index to 1. Higher numbers are drawn on top of above lower numbers, which is actually the opposite of GameMaker. I know a lot of the students watching these videos will probably be used to GameMaker, so it's the opposite of GameMaker. Which honestly, it makes more sense. Higher numbers are drawn above lower numbers on your z-index, but this will make it so the ship is drawn basically on top of everything inside of this scene, because relative means relative to the scene. Okay, I want to create a hit effect for when the bullet hits an enemy, and we could do this with, let's do this with particles. So we'll create a new scene, and I'm kind of branching outside my reference project here, so hopefully this goes well. We'll create a new, let's just do a 2D node. We'll call this laser hit effect. And we'll create a new particle here. We'll create a sound effect as well. So audio stream player. And I think we've got a hit wave. So let's let's just call this hit effect, because we might use this hit sound. We might use this for when the enemies hit the player as well. I'm not sure. So we'll drag over our hit. Let's play it. Okay, sounds good. And we do want to autoplay. And we'll create a particle. Hit particles. We'll create a process material just like we did before. New particles. We'll want this to be a one shot, which means it will just shoot once. And we'll give it explosiveness. Explosiveness of 1. So let's turn it off, turn it back on. Let's drag our, I'm going to hold Alt, that will allow you to select the node that you have selected. I'll drag it down into the room a bit here. And we're going to just run this scene and see what happens. We do want to save it. Okay. Okay, so the sound effect plays. I don't see any particles though. So we'll turn off one shot. Set our explosiveness to 0. We're no longer creating particles. Oh, it's because emitting is now off. Oh my goodness. Okay, so set explosiveness back to 1. Set emitting to on. There we go. Since it's a one shot, it will just create the particles and then stop. And that's exactly what we want. So now we're going to come into our particle material. We're going to set our gravity to 0 again. We'll set our velocity again. I don't know, maybe to 50. And we'll do 0.75 on velocity randomness. Turn off one shot for now. Turn on emitting just so we can see it. And you can see it just fires over and over again like that. We're going to want to change our spread to be 180 maybe, which will go in all directions. We're going to want our amount, I don't know, maybe 6. I feel like we don't need 8. I also feel like we could slow down the lifetime. Yeah, that's much better. And then let's up the randomness on our velocity just a bit. Yeah, we'll just do a 1 on the velocity. And I think that's it. You can change a lot of stuff, like your color. You can make this a color ramp, which is basically a gradient. I'll show you how to do that just because it's interesting. So we'll create a new gradient. Click on that. And you can see we could start out white, for example. And then have it fade to, select this color right here, fade to black like this. Or just fade to a low alpha like that. So then the particles kind of fade away. This would make our game no longer 1 bit, obviously, because this isn't a single bit anymore. We're getting color gradients here. But you can add other colors. So like maybe you want it to be white longer. So you can add another color to your gradient just by clicking on it and upping this a lot here. So then your color is, the alpha value fades drastically at the end, but more gradually over here. So there's a lot of stuff you can do. Let's actually leave this gradient just for a little bit to see how it looks. But we're going to want to have our particles. We're going to want to destroy this hit effect at the end of our, once the particles are finished playing. And unfortunately, the particles don't really have a signal for when they're done. And that's because they don't really have like a finished, even though we are going to change it to one shot, which will make it kind of be finished. And we can't see it. It plays too quickly in our scene, but that's okay. Let's set our transform back to 0, 0 on our root. So we're back up here. And save. And so how are we going to destroy it? We don't want to destroy after the sound effect finishes playing because it might be finished before our particles are done. So we can come back and do a little review. We can use our timer node again. So our timer node, we can, our lifetime for the particles is 0.25. So we can give our timer node a wait time. We can give it an auto start, a one shot, and the wait time of 0.3 or something. So you could do it exactly, but I'm just going to give it a little bit of leeway here. And then we can come into our signals, timeout on the hit effect. We'll want to do Q free. So we'll destroy this node once the timer is done. And we've got a simple hit effect. So let's come into our, well, let's see, where are we going to want to create this? Seems like we'll want to create it in the laser. So that means we'll need to add a script to our laser. So let's add a new script. Great. And just for the sake of teaching you, obviously, come into your laser sound and turn off autoplay. So this sound will no longer automatically play. Now inside of your laser script, we'll get access to the laser sound using an onReady variable. OnReady var equals, or onReady var laser sound equals laser sound. Okay. And we can then just call laser sound dot play. There we go. That's how you play a sound from code. You get access to it like that. Now we're going to need to get access to our hit effect, right? Hit effect. So we'll do const hit effect equals preload. And I want to show you guys that you can actually grab a scene down here like hit effect and drag it into code and drop it, and it will give you the path to that scene. So that's kind of a neat little thing. Let's create a new function here. Create hit effect. Var main equals get tree dot current scene. So we'll get our main scene. We'll do var hit effect equals hit effect dot instance. So we're doing some review again. Main dot add child hit effect and hit effect dot global position equals global position. There we go. And we want to create this when the laser dies. So we can use, I think we've already used this function. Let me double check. Exit scene. Nope, we haven't. So I've had to re-record a couple of these lectures, so it's sometimes I forget if I taught you something in a previous lecture or if I taught you something in a lecture that I had to re-record. And this seems to be the case. So there's a function called exit tree, and this function gets called automatically when a node is destroyed. So once this laser is destroyed, this function will be called. This is when we want to create our hit effect. Create hit effect. Just like that. Now we can save and run the game. our particles aren't working, so we'll have to figure out that. But the sound effect is working. However, we've got an issue there, which is obviously that the exit tree is being called. The exit tree is being called when the laser is destroyed outside the room. So this actually isn't a really good method for doing that. It seems a better method for doing that would be to come into our enemy, and when we collide with the body, or the laser in this case, we call body Q free. We can also call body.create hit effect. And I'm not sure this is the most clean way of doing this, but it's a pretty simple solution and it works nicely. So now we no longer have the issue when they're destroyed outside the room, only here. Let's figure out why our hit effect isn't showing the particles. So come into the particles. I think maybe emitting needs to be on. Even if it's one shot, I still think you have to have emitting on. Let's see if that's the problem. Nope. So probably what's going on here is that the emitting needs to be turned on right when the effect is created. And we could do this in code by creating a script for the hit effect and then setting emitting equal to true is my guess. Or I think we could do it with an animation player. So those are our two options here. Don't really know which one's the better option. I think since we've already been avoiding a script on this node, we should try doing it with the animation player and see how that goes. Actually, admittedly, this is actually a way we could get rid of our timer node too. So it's not a bad solution. Let's get rid of the, don't delete it yet. Make sure you come in and get rid of this. For some reason, if you delete a node that has a connected signal, it doesn't seem to get rid of the signal. And at least I've had issues with that in the past. So we'll get rid of the signal by right-clicking on it and then right-click on the node, delete it. We'll have our animation player here, create a new animation. We'll call it hit. We'll make it last, we'll make it last 0.3, the same amount of time as our alarm. And then our, let's see, our particles will want to key emitting and then try setting that to automatically play. And let's see if this works. I don't know if it will or not. Doesn't seem to. Oh, we want emitting to be true though. It seems to be keyed at false. What? That is... There we go. If you click on it down here, it doesn't seem to allow you to check it down here, but you can check it over here once you've clicked on it. Now let's see if this works. Yep. It does work. The particle's pretty minimal. So let's come back into our gradient here and clear this. That was fun, but not really what we want. And let's set our particle lifetime to be 0.4. We want to, well, let's do 0.3. And let's set our emission shape be a sphere. And the sphere radius can be 4 maybe. Let's see what this looks like. I don't know. I'll do a sphere radius of 2 actually. And then we'll save and try this again. Let's try this again. We'll run. A little bit of a more experimental process here because it's a pretty subtle effect, but it's not bad. Yeah, that seems to be better to have the lifetime. I think we'll do 0.4 for the lifetime. I think the longer the lifetime is for the particles, the better. You could also scale it a little bit because they do seem small. Maybe 1.5. So I just scaled the particle node. And this will make them slightly larger than actual pixels. So we're not quite actually pixels now. But it does seem to look more realistic at that size. At just 1.5. Yeah, that looks pretty good, honestly. So I'm going to leave that. But those particles weren't being destroyed because remember we got rid of our... Well, let me say exactly what we did again. So we removed the timer node. We added an animation player node. Made a new animation. We set our particle, we increased the life just a little bit to 0.4. So we're going to want to change this animation to 0.4 as well. And then we just made the particles are one shot. Emitting is set to off, but we made an animation where we set emitting to true. And I had to click this and then set it manually over here, the value. I had to click the key after I had actually keyed that in. And now the final thing we'll do is we'll get our animation finished signal. We'll connect it to the hit effect and we'll have it call Q. We actually, I think it has a, actually I think because it has an argument for the signal, we can't actually do that. But we can just call Q free inside of our animation here. So we'll add a track, add a call method track to hit effect. We'll right click, do insert key at the very end of our timeline. And we'll call Q free. Perfect. I think that's cleaner anyways than using a signal. So one last problem we've got here actually is that the enemies also are creating their explosion when they go outside the room. So let's fix that real quick. Come into enemy scene right here. And then we can see we're calling Q free here, but we did use this function already. We did use exit tree. So in order to fix this, what we'll do is we'll create a function called create explosion, I think. In fact, we can just rename this create explosion, just like that. And then we'll just call this, but only when our armor is less than or equal to 0 here. In fact, let's create another function too to clean up this function. Add to score, and we can copy this right here where we add the score. Paste it there. I'm always wary of copying and pasting, but we'll want to add to score and create explosion right here. So if our armor is less than or equal to 0, we can add to the score and create our explosion. Actually, no, that's fine. We'll just leave that like that for now. Could be cleaned up a little bit more, but this should be good. So that's going to be it for this lecture. It's a little bit of a longer one, but we added quite a bit of polish, and I think the game is significantly better than when we started. And it's always fun to see the juice, adding a little bit of juice to your game like this. So thank you. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next lecture.